Welcome to our movie recap channel, your ultimate destination for in-depth and engaging movie summaries, whether you're looking to catch up on the latest blockbusters or revisit classic films.
In the initial scene, we see Abigail, a 12-year-old ballet artist, rehearsing in a vacant theater. In the meantime, a lady who is really an individual from a lawbreaker group is plotting to grab Abigail. They start making arrangements, and we see that each member plays a specific part. The lady is a doctor, and the group's other members include a muscle man, a marksman, a programmer, a driver, and finally, their chief.
After finishing her practice, Abigail heads home, unaware that she is being followed by the kidnappers.
Meanwhile, the programmer is already outside her home, having effectively disabled surveillance cameras and systems.
Before Abigail can return, 3 kidnappers break into the house and patiently wait for her.
The doctor is shocked to see the room because she had no idea they planned to kidnap a child. But the leader assures her that there is no turning back now. Soon after, Abigail returns home while talking to someone on the phone.
When she hangs up, the leader even attempts to punch the girl, but the doctor steps in and injects Abigail with a sedative, knocking her out.
The criminals attempt to leave with the girl, but suddenly, Abigail's father appears.
As they rush out, the house alarm goes off, but they still manage to escape and get into their van.
After some time, they reach an old mansion located in the forest.
There, they meet the mastermind, Lambert, who guides them inside.
After locking Abigail in a room with blindfolds and cuffs, the group meets downstairs. It's revealed that this is the first time they've all met. Thus, Lambert asks the group not to share their real names or backgrounds.
He explains that they just need to hold the girl for 24 hours until her father pays the ransom money.
When the doctor asks about Abigail's father, Lambert simply says the man is rich and can easily pay a $50 million ransom.
He promises each of them $7 million at the end. He then instructs them to surrender their cell phones to avoid being tracked. Before leaving, he gives them code names to address each other.
The leader's name is Plain, the programmer is Sammy, the driver is Dean, the muscleman is Peter, the marksman is Rickles, and the doctor is Joey.
After Lambert leaves, everyone starts drinking, except Joey. It is revealed that Plain used to be a cop, and he's able to point out that Joe is a recovering drug addict.
Hearing this, Joey is briefly stunned, but she then excuses herself to check on Abigail.
Upon arriving at the room, Joey immediately puts on a face mask and removes the blindfold from the girl when she says it's too tight.
Her arms are also sore from the cuffs, so Joey loosens them slightly. The scared girl begins pleading for help, but Joey responds that they will hold her for a while until her father gives them the money. Here, Joey assures Abigail that she won't let anyone hurt her.
She then reveals that she has a daughter who is the same age as Abigail. Suddenly, Abigail tells her that they were wrong since her father doesn't care about her. As Joey proceeds to leave, Abigail apologizes for what's about to happen to her.
Hearing this, a worried Joey goes downstairs and confronts Plain about the identity of the girl's father.
Plain has no clue, although he is the only person who knew Lambert personally before this operation.
Joey then informs him that the girl implied her father is a very dangerous man.
Curious, Plain heads to Abigail's room, but he is shocked to find her without her blindfold. Plain points a gun at her and asks if she saw his face. She denies seeing him, and Plain presses her to reveal her father's identity. So the frightened girl confesses that her father is Christoph Lazaar.
Hearing this, Plain is terrified and immediately rushes downstairs to gather his things. He informs the group that he's quitting since he didn't know the girl's father was Christoph Lazaar.
Apparently, Lazaar is a very dangerous criminal underworld figure. Dean argues that Lazaar is just an urban legend and not real, but Plain insists otherwise.
Since Abigail has already seen his face, Plain considers killing Abigail and escaping, but Joey opposes this plan. Dean then comments that the prospect of $7 million is great money, and he will take the risk.
Eventually, the group decides to stay put, as they only have 22 hours left for the operation. Later on, Dean wanders the house when he suddenly hears a strange noise.
He follows the sound until he reaches a dark room. Inside, he sees a vintage painting and thinks the girl in it looks like Abigail, but Dean is too drunk to think about it. He then goes to the kitchen, located in the basement of the house, looking for food. He suddenly sees a door opening on its own.
Confused, he enters the room, and he is suddenly startled by a mouse. But then, just as Dean is about to leave, meanwhile, Sammy is in her room when she hears Dean's screams. She rushes to the basement to check on him, and is relieved to find him sitting in a chair, but his head falls from his decapitated body.
After hearing her voice, the others race to the scene.
Plain accuses Sammy of the murder, but she claims she is incapable of such gruesome acts.
Seeing this, Joey asserts that it looks like the work of Valdez, who is known as the most dangerous hitman of Lazaar.
Several years ago, 3 of Lazaar's men were captured by the FBI.
The night before the trial, they were placed in a top-floor hotel room guarded by multiple police at the front door. But when FBI agents entered the room the next morning, they found the criminals' bodies dismembered and their organs missing.
Furthermore, the room could only be reached through the front door and a window on the 23rd floor. The group is now terrified, suspecting that Valdez may be inside the house, so they check on Abigail's condition, and she's fine. Finally, Rickles declares he's had enough and decides to quit. He heads to the front door, only to find another iron-fenced door blocking the exit.
He and Peter do their best to break through this door, but they are unsuccessful. Instead, their efforts activate the home security system, which seals off all doors and windows. Consequently, Joey goes to see Abigail and asks if anyone else has visited her besides herself and Plain.
The girl denies it, but she appears to be frightened for some reason, and finally admits that Plain is the man who works for her father, and his name is Valdez.
Hearing this, Joey is horrified.
Rickles tells her that he suddenly lost his rifle, and she shares about Plain being Valdez. Rickles finds it hard to believe because Plain was trying to escape, but Joey suggests it might be an act. They realize they can't trust others anymore, so they decide to team up and kill the imposter. But just as Joey is about to go, she hears a noise. When she turns around, she sees Rickles standing in the hallway. She calls out to him, but he doesn't respond, and she finds him severely injured, with his face torn apart. Rickles then takes his last breath. Furious, Joey gathers the group and confronts Plain, demanding to know why he brought them to the mansion just to kill them. He is puzzled, so she reveals everything Abigail told her earlier and states that he killed the 2 people. Plain denies the accusations and claims that Abigail is just trying to manipulate Joey.
He then asks Peter to kill the girl for good. Peter enters Abigail's room, ready to shoot her, but is stopped by Joey. Chaos ensues with everyone blaming each other and pointing guns. Amidst the conflict, Abigail successfully removes her cuffs and takes a ballet position. She transforms into a vampire, and Plain immediately shoots her in the forehead. However, seconds later, she gets up, and her wound is instantly healed. Joey starts shooting her multiple times, and fortunately, the group manages to lock Abigail inside.
During this, they finally realize that Abigail is, in fact, the infamous Valdez. They then try to figure out how to deal with a vampire and kill her once and for all.
The group finds the stake to pierce the vampire's heart, but Joey isn't joining them due to the risk. Sometime later, Peter, Plain, and Sammy go to confront Abigail, but she isn't in her room.
They suddenly hear music playing and head to the sound upstairs.
To their dismay, they find Abigail dancing with Dean's dead body. After seeing them, Abigail acts innocent and invites them to sit down and talk. Sammy gathers the courage to attack her with garlic, but it doesn't work.
Peter tries to intervene, but Abigail repeatedly stabs him with his own cross necklace. Plain then approaches her with a wooden stake, but Abigail uses it to stab him in his own thighs.
Realizing they can't win, the group retreats and rushes downstairs to the foyer. Joey giggles at their ineptitude prior to keeping an eye on their wounds. She then informs the group that the best way to repress the girl is to use the narcotic and render her unconscious. As before, she advises the group to separate, and whoever finds Abigail first must immediately tell her. The 4 now fan out around the house, searching for Abigail. Soon after, Sammy is attacked by a bat, which causes her to fall into a pool.
Unfortunately, it is filled with the bodies of Abigail's past victims.
Meanwhile, Peter is trying to remove a splinter from his finger when Abigail appears.
He tries to lock himself in a room, but the vampire easily breaks through the door.
While he's running on the steps, he gets pushed by Frank and tumbles to the ground.
Frank tries to confront Abigail, but Abigail pushes him down the steps and starts choking him, while Joey's needle is discarded behind the locked grill door. Abigail almost kills Frank before Sammy intervenes, but Abigail brutally bites her hand. As things go crazy, Peter arrives and manages to pin her to the ground, allowing Joey to inject her and make her pass out. In the aftermath, when Abigail wakes, she finds herself trapped in an iron cage. Sammy expresses concern about whether she'll turn into a vampire, and Abigail says maybe, which makes her panic. Later, She finally admits that Lambert works for her and that she orchestrated the entire kidnapping. She says that she will kill every single one of them because they have all tried to harm her father's criminal business.
Furthermore, Abigail reveals that she is more than 100 years old and then proceeds to disclose the true identities of each member of the group.
Abigail reveals that Sammy's real name is Jessica, who began her career by siphoning money from her wealthy parents' bank accounts.
As she became more involved in financial fraud, she targeted larger entities, including Lazaar's company.
She further reveals that Peter's real name is Terrence. He was a thug for a subsidiary of Lazaar's empire, but then started stealing money from the crew.
As for Frank, his real name is Adam, an undercover cop who infiltrated Lazaar's New York branch. When 3 of the top members were arrested, Abigail slaughtered them, and Adam changed his name and left town. Finally, Joey's real name is Anna Lucia Kras, and she was a former army doctor who was fired because of her morphine addiction.
She went on to work as an underground doctor for shady people.
One day, when she was impaired, she accidentally nicked a man's artery while attempting to remove a bullet.
This caused him to die a painful death, and the patient turned out to be important to Lazaar's business.
Hearing this, Frank states that Abigail should have already killed them and questions why she orchestrated the whole kidnapping.
The girl replies that she enjoys playing with her food since it helps her pass the time. She then declares that whoever helps her out of this cage will have their life spared.
Without wasting time, Peter attempts to free her despite being warned, so Joey shoots him.
The others then leave to tend to his wounds, while Frank stays behind to watch over Abigail.
Subsequently, the vampire girl attempts to trick Frank into releasing her, but he remains steadfast. He agrees to consider her offer only if she provides information on how to escape.
She then tells him about a secret door in the library.
She instructs him to push the bookshelf on the right wall, using the book title, and then there were none, which will reveal the door. Frank is pleased, but he still refuses to open the cage door. This enrages Abigail so much that she effortlessly destroys the cage door with one blow and starts attacking him.
At this crucial moment, Joey arrives and tears open the boarded up windows.
This exposes Abigail to sunlight, which appears to be harmful to her.
Her hand is affected, and she starts screaming in pain.
Frank and Joey take advantage of this opportunity and race to the library with the others. They notice the sunlight coming from a particular window and decide to stay there. Sammy is also relieved that she's not turning into a vampire.
Meanwhile, Frank takes out the book that Abigail mentioned, but nothing happens, and he realizes he has been deceived.
The group becomes increasingly concerned as they realize they are only safe until it's dark.
Suddenly, Sammy suggests that they simply find and deactivate the power source, which will turn off the devices.
The group agrees with the plan and splits into pairs to search for the power source. Sammy and Peter head in one direction, while Joey and Frank go in another. Soon after, Sammy, who had been bitten earlier, hears the music played by Abigail.
Unfortunately, her vampirism takes over, and Abigail starts controlling her like a puppet.
Peter, who was inspecting a wall, is shocked to find Sammy suddenly disappearing from his sight. Sammy returns and viciously attacks him. After tearing his neck apart, she begins doing a ballet performance, mimicking Abigail's movements. When Joey and Frank arrive, Sammy tries acting normal and claims that Peter is injured and needs help. However, the couple realizes that something is wrong and immediately take off, with Sammy chasing them. They soon return to the library and find cover under the sunlight. Just when Sammy is about to attack, Joey directs the sunlight toward her, causing the vampire's body to rapidly disintegrate, resulting in her death. Moments later, the secret door of the library opens, and Joey and Frank walk into the hallway.
They soon hear a sound from a room, and then find a control room with Lambert inside.
At this point, they realize that he is a vampire too.
He reveals that Abigail turned him into a vampire years ago, forcing him to regularly lure her father's enemies to their deaths. He then tells Frank that he has had enough of being Lazaar's puppet, so Lambert makes a deal with Frank to turn him into a vampire. The plan is to kill Abigail together and then go after Lazaar. With this, the pair can enjoy the spoils of the entire empire.
Frank immediately agrees, and Lambert knocks Joey out.
He then wastes no time and bites Frank's neck to turn him into a vampire. He also lets him drink his own blood to make him stronger.
When Frank finally turns into a vampire, Lambert orders him to kill Joey.
But then suddenly, Frank plunges a stake into Lambert's heart, causing him to disintegrate.
When Frank is about to kill Joey, Abigail suddenly appears and tries to attack him.
However, he retaliates by sinking his teeth into her neck, draining her of all her power. Meanwhile, Joey seizes the opportunity to deactivate the security system of the house and quickly grabs her cell phone. She makes a run toward the secret door that was previously opened, only to find it locked now.
Realizing she might meet her end soon, she leaves an emotional voicemail for her estranged son. In the meantime, Frank catches up to her.
Driven mad with power, he vows to turn Joey into a vampire so she can serve him. Following this, he begins tossing her around violently. He then throws her from the second floor, but fortunately, Abigail appears and catches her.
The girl explains that she feels very weak and asks for her help in defeating Frank. Abigail promises she'll let her go to see her son. Joey agrees, and they both work together against him.
Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, Frank easily overpowers them and manages to bite Joey's neck.
When the latter transforms, Frank spots a stake in her hand, ordering her to finish off Abigail. Joey, who appears to be in a vampiric trance, agrees and cautiously approaches the girl.
But then, she suddenly attacks Frank instead. Abigail also re-enters the fight, and together, they manage to overpower and pin the inexperienced vampire down. As they drive a stake into Frank's heart, his body erupts in an explosion, giving the girl's blood.
Joey then expresses concern about becoming a vampire, but Abigail assures her that she is now free from the curse because Frank has died.
She also hopes Joey will be reunited with her son. As Joey is about to leave, she is confronted by Abigail's father, priest of Lazaar.
She is terrified to see him, and Lazaar threatens to kill her for kidnapping his child.
He goes into full beast mode, but Abigail intervenes. She asserts Joey was there to protect her when he was not and credits her for her survival.
Surprisingly, Lazaar is moved by this and kisses Joey's hand before telling her to leave.
Covered in blood, Joey then heads to the van parked outside before driving away from the estate to see her son. And this is where the film ends.